One. And we're live. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon debate between War Corp 666, aka Lord of Patriarchy, and the Dark Conservatarian, also known as DarkCon. Today's debate is over the timeless issue of abortion. And the Dark Conservatarian is pro-life, Lord of Patriarchy is pro-choice. And here is a brief format of how this debate will go. There will be 2 5-minute intros from each person. Then there will be an 8-minute rebuttal, or if they want to, they can reserve their time if they'd like to. And then after that, there will be a 15-minute open discussion, and then a 15-minute period of addressing the chat, with 8-minute rebuttals for perspectives, as well as 5-minute closing. And again, if you feel like you've made your remarks without using all your time, you can reserve your time if you so choose. So, let's begin. You wanted to go first, right, Darkon?
Well, yeah, for introducing myself anyways.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I guess obviously War Corpse will not be mirroring this on his channel or something, but hello everybody, most of y'all know me. I'm Zach the Dark Conservatarian, the kind of fash-looking, peacoat rocking, pro-life firebrand that he is, and I am here to debate for the third time ever on abortion specifically. And if anybody from the Lord of Patriarchy's, aka War Corpse's channel does come and watch this, if you're pro-life, you might come over and might actually like my content. If you're pro-choice and you're not already subscribed to me, well then either you won't care or you might even outright hate me. But anyway, but there is other content on my channel, obviously, aside from abortion. If you like that, well then, all the same, go ahead and check out my channel.
All right. If you want to introduce yourself, Lord of Patriarchy, can you go ahead and do so?
Okay, I'm formerly Warcorp 666, Lord of Patriarchy, Dave Nordahl, and I'm debating the Dark Conservatarian for the third time on the topic of abortion. And believe it or not, Jesus, I'm completely fried. Me and him agree on a lot of things. So yeah, if you like my content, chances are you'll like his content. I guess that's all I gotta say. And I'm actually gonna mirror this on mine. I'm setting up the chat or the stream now, so okay. I'll be listening to your opening statement though.
Okay.
All right, then.
All right, so after that, we can go ahead and move to the introduction perspectives of these two. So, whoever would like to go first, you have up to 5 minutes, but you don't have to use all the time for your perspective as to why you hold the position you hold.
Well, I thought we kind of agreed that I would go ahead and go first.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
All right. So tell me when my 5 minutes has started.
It starts right now.
All right. I am pro-life. My deal with abortion is more on the moral and biology side of the issue and of human life itself in general. And that's what I'd like to focus on more, honestly. All the side issues of veganism and animal life, welfare or lack of, global overpopulation, and how abortion lines up with religions, etc. I'd be more than happy to address that, but let's take the issues one at a time, please. My deal with abortion, though, is the fact that generally as humans we recognize the right to life for all innocent human persons, and yet because of physical position, underdevelopment, economic circumstances, or inconvenience, we rather inconsistently don't extend that to the smallest among us, that being the unborn child. Regardless of when your cap on abortion is. And so this, despite it not being objectively immoral in the same way of committing homicide, I still find to be morally atrocious. My proposal to make it more consistent is this: a general ban on abortion where the only exceptions are for a life of mothers, something that the majority of pro-lifers are for, and for embryos before the 7-week period, something that a lot of pro-lifers disagree with me on. And despite how I philosophically and morally disagree with getting an abortion even between the moment of conception and the 7-week period, I see no way for me to make the legal argument against abortion before that period, though. For if we are to determine personhood off of the presence of a live brain, which I find reasonable enough, then that would mean that humans' life falls on next of kin. How it would be enforced more precisely, though, is if we find and shut down all clinics committing illegal abortions and criminally fine the surgeons for such practices. We would not punish every single woman in America for getting a self-induced abortion or intentionally falling down the stairs to induce a miscarriage, as I hear those anecdotal stories, and therefore there would be no practical way for us to determine and prevent that without setting up a surveillance camera in every single hallway, stairway, and room in America. And we can all agree that that is a very bad Orwellian precedent set up there, and I disagree with that. Plus, as the typical belief goes, the women getting abortions are more victims than perpetrators, be it because of rape or peer pressure from others to get one. With all that said, though, I am confident that there is not a huge swath of women who have the masochism and guts to be willing enough to do a self-induced coat hanger abortion, or otherwise self-induced, or self-induced miscarriage. Why do I think that? Because of how deaths from self-induced abortion, despite how terrible they are, is where the anecdotes exist anyways, is practically statistically non-existent, with them being found to be around 300 at the lowest and 2,000 at the highest, both before and during the passing of Roe v. Wade. So I highly doubt that illegal or self-induced abortions would skyrocket if Roe v. Wade was overturned and big swaths of states started criminalizing abortion here in America. With that out of the way, I'd like to address some of the easier issues that were raised to me in the past days and in relation to this debate in general. One, I am not anti-suicide. Yes, I don't want the closest people in my life I care about to take their own lives, but I don't see an individual doing that as unethical, nor should it be illegal in my point of view, as they aren't violating any second party's right to life. They're only consensually forfeiting their own life to the Grim Reaper, as a metaphor. Two, I believe in the right to life, not the quote-unquote sacredness of life, as I believe that's a bit of a misnomer. So don't anyone be using that talking point on me, as I don't think I've ever technically used the sacredness of life talking point. Three, I believe in the right of bodily autonomy, so don't anyone strawman me by saying that I'm against that, as that is simply not true. I believe that a person can do whatever they want with their body as long as it doesn't non-consensually affect second party. In the case of abortion, the fetus is that second party. My rights end where your rights begin. The mother's right to bodily autonomy ends where the fetus's right to life, or even bodily autonomy as well for that matter, begins. 4, I simply do not need to be a woman or a trans male in order to have a moral compass on life itself or abortion. So no matter how many times or what people in general, not necessarily pointing fingers or anything, like to say playing that gender identity politics talking point, I'm not going to silence on this issue. And I yield.
All right, Darkon used all but 15 seconds of his time, and I will, when you're ready, Lord Patriarchy, I'll start your timer.
Okay, right now. Okay, now, one of the things that comes from the pro-life side is the sacredness of life, the sacredness of life, the sacredness of life. And the sad fact of the matter is they're one of the biggest exception makers on this planet, chiefly among them, the death penalty. But the other argument that I find quite aggravating with them is the simple fact that, one, human beings are our brains. Without it, we're a bag of meat. That's it. When you get your brain, you're human. When your brain goes dead, you're dead. So that means that up until about 5.5 months or so, the fetus is nothing more than a meatball. But the other thing that aggravates me is they never want to accept the consequences of if we get rid of abortion. Now, is abortion the greatest thing since sliced bread? No, of course not. But unless they want to accept the consequences of a massively expanded welfare state, the fact that self-induced abortions are going to go through the roof in a country like Argentina with a fraction of the U.S. population, they have something like 300,000 deaths and sterilizations per year. It's some insane number. Like 25% of them from the illegal coat hanger abortions that he just alluded to end with either the death of the woman or the sterilization of the woman. We're also going to need to bring back the orphanage system. You're going to see a spike in babies in dumpsters because, quite frankly, there is no way to force a woman to give a crap about the child. You cannot force a parent to love a child, okay? Especially if it's one they don't want. And you're going to see a huge spike in child abuse. So, quite frankly, which is better? You know, and so I guess my premise is unless you're willing to basically massively expand the welfare state and deal with the fact that you're going to have a huge spike in illegal abortions and girls with coat hangers, and a mass amount of sterilization. Again, you can see this in countries. I use Argentina, I believe it is, as the example. It's a huge number. And dealing with the spike in what you're going to have with child abuse. And what are you going to do with all the unwanted kids and the kids in dumpsters? So I just think while abortion is not the greatest thing in the universe, it's one of those necessary evils. And I also think, to be consistent on this, if you don't like abortion and you're against abortion, then you kind of have to be against the death penalty, euthanasia, right to die, and the rest of that. You know, I'm not going to go with the whole animal argument. That's irrelevant. Let's just keep it to humans. I think that's about all I got to say on that.
Okay, that's 3 minutes, 22 seconds. And after that, we go from the perspectives to, and this is up to 8 minutes for rebuttal to each other's perspectives. You, of course, don't have to use all that time. So, DarkCon, this would be your segment. You have up to 8 minutes to rebut War Corpse's opening perspective.
Starting now?
Starting now.
All right. I would like to thank War Corps for at least putting a pin in the whole veganism and animal rights part of the debate, and I am willing. I've never participated in a veganism debate, but if anybody wants to, I am open to it, I guess, although it's not really my forte. But anyway, that being said, as I'll reiterate, I am for the right to die, consensually die, that being a suicide or assisted suicide. I must reiterate that again. And also, sacredness of life. The reason why I don't use the sacredness of life talking point, and I hope that we can put aside that little talking point, is because, for one, I believe that to be more of a religious talking point, and I don't use religion hardly at all to determine my moral compass when it comes to abortion. I'm more likely to become an agnostic atheist than a pro-choicer, if I was to explain how that circumstance is of how I prioritize my beliefs, honestly. And another reason as to why that I don't use that talking point, religion aside, is that I believe that it kind of sets up the precedent that life is so sacred that it can never, absolutely ever be touched. I don't believe that it should never be touched. I mean, if somebody is ultimately invading on your right to life by trying to kill you, well, then their life isn't so freaking sacred to where that you cannot counteract against them, defend yourself, and ultimately even kill them if you have to. Same thing goes for the death penalty, again, because, again, I believe in the right to life, and now I'm saying again a whole crap ton of times, but anyway, death penalty. The reason as to why that I believe that the death penalty is acceptable, I mean, is because of the fact that the murderer there has invaded on another person's right to life. Now, we can debate about the death penalty itself all day long and how that the death penalty, inadvertently or accidentally, mistakenly, whatever word you want to use there, it does end up with innocent people dying. Yeah, that is an issue. But the purpose of the death penalty is to kill people who have killed other people. And fetuses haven't even committed the singlest iota of immorality on anyone, so I don't see the reasoning for why that their right to life is null and void in any comparable way to a violent criminal. And also, lack of welfare being a false equivalence. We'll get to that a little bit more in the open discussion, I guess. But I want to just add the caveat. I kept on saying it's more like letting people die for lack of welfare. I mean, that isn't an absolutely guarantee, honestly, because even if we were not to give out welfare to everybody, they are not absolutely guaranteed to die. They're just not being provided for in their own life. They can still like try and give a stab at life to the best of their ability to where that they can at least survive. They will not be living too cozily, granted, but they'll still survive. Again, death is not a guarantee, but abortion, that is more of a guarantee of death. Or in other cases of violating on people's life, be it homicide or whatever else have you. And so, yeah. Existence of brains with fetuses. You mentioned something about how we are essentially our brains, and I agree enough, but I'll say, like I said again, 7 weeks, or more precisely 6.5 weeks, and brainwaves are detected. There is a presence, even if it's underdeveloped, it still exists. And even John Hopkins, as I've read up to at least 2 sources related to John Hopkins, Hopkins All Medicine, or excuse me, Hopkins All Children, and John Hopkins Medicine, those 2 websites, one of them says that, yeah, brain development does start at 6 weeks, and I would think at 12 and 19 weeks, the 2 examples that were presented in that video that you had responded to, War Corpse, would have a brain, ultimately. And the other article talking about fetal development, All Medicine, there was nothing that said anything contrary to my other sources on the existence of a brain. And I do want to say that underdevelopment does not mean non-existence of a brain, honestly. And Argentina's abortion stats, I still want to kind of know where that you got that statistic from, where you're getting your precise statistics from, because I'm getting them from humanrightswatch.org, I think it is. And the most maternal mortality rate, the raw number, is 17,979. That being an annual rate. That's not like a total over lifespan of the existence of Argentina or the existence of banning abortion. It's annual. And as far as like deaths from illegal abortion, it's 5,000. It's still like a little over 5,000. 5,394, as I had like broke down the numbers and wrote them down on WordPad. And you mentioned the example of if we do like ban abortion, that there are going to be more parents abusing their kids. Well, we do not say that the kid's right to life is null and void because somebody else is want to invade on their rights, this being like a child abuse or whatever. Instead, it would be more moral for us to send in CPS to take custody of those kids than if we were to eliminate them, be it whether they're unborn or otherwise. And I think that's all I have, so I'll yield.
All right, and you have about 2 minutes left before you'd run out. War Corpse, are you ready to start your 8-minute perspective rebuttal?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is the death penalty. That kills an actual human that has a fully formed brain, and you think that's acceptable, but abortion is not, which is just it doesn't compute. You know, the fetus doesn't feel pain. It doesn't even have a brain yet. I'm going to get to the brainwave matter in a moment. To me, a fetus before the brain is fully developed and online, it's not a human. It's not. This is us. This is it. As for the welfare argument, it's going to have to be expanded. Because what is a 17-year-old high school girl that can't get that if you got abortion legal can't get rid of the baby, but then what's she supposed to do? What? Beg on the street? Become a hooker? She doesn't have enough education to get a job that would support the baby. So either we all do or she gets the abortion. And furthermore, what if it's a 14-year-old girl who maybe made a mistake and slept with her 14-year-old boyfriend? And the brainwaves that are in there, basically, they're just kind of like background noise. They're not like formed yet. Okay. And again, I love how you say that 5,000 annual deaths occur due to back alley witch doctor abortions, and that's acceptable to you. I mean, just be a little. I'm just looking for some consistency in the argument. Personally, I'd rather just have no deaths from back alley abortions and we keep the damn thing safe and legal. Now, I'm not so far as to say on demand without apology, and yes, the mother can pay for it. I don't think we should all be kicking in for it. And again, I don't want to misconstrue your argument, but the last one is, you seem to be fine with a rise in child abuse and sending out CPS to deal with the problem when CPS is already overworked and underfunded and can't keep up with all the problems. I tend to think that, and one more point, getting back to the welfare argument, is what if you have a family that's already financially stressed? Now she's pregnant again. They can't afford another baby. So there's two options: either abortion or they go on welfare. Like, there's going to come a tipping point. So I tend to think that, while abortion, not great, but it solves more problems than it creates. And I think and that's why I'm for the death penalty. It solves more problems than it creates, and it gives people some closure. And I don't know where I'm on time, but I think I'm pretty much done with the rebuttal.
All right. Okay. That's 3.5 minutes. So you're doing pretty good on time. All right. So at this point, this enters the open discussion. This is a 15-minute segment. So when you both are ready, we can begin the 15-minute open discussion segment.
Yeah, I'm all for limiting this debate down to 1.5 hours, but could we use our remaining time to contribute into that open discussion portion?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I want to say that no, I'm not fine with child abuse, but I don't see how. Honestly, I don't see how abortion is justified because of someone else's plausible actions. And no, I'm not fine with, for one thing, I'm not fine with 500,000 illegal abortions happening in Argentina or happening anywhere annually. And also, I did not.
Well then, what's your solution?
Where are you getting this?
Let him finish.
What is your solution?
What's my solution? Right. Is private sector. Okay. The short answer to that is private sector activism, charity and donation and whatnot. Not so much welfare, although it is a tolerable compromise. But I want to ask you, where are you getting 500,000 deaths from illegal abortions from?
I used your stat, the 5,000 deaths.
I thought you said 500,000.
No, it was 5,000. What you said. And to me, I think it'd be better if it was zero. And unfortunately, again, with all the extra kids that the consequences of what you want would be, there's not going to be enough charities on quite frankly, on the planet to deal with that. Again, my argument is that it solves more problems than it creates. And I didn't mean to imply that you were just fine with child abuse, but you're fine with a rise in it, because you're going to have parents that didn't want the kid, resent him being there. Basically, that's going to be the consequences. They're more likely to abuse their kids. CPS is already stretched pretty thin, as they've stated. And again, it solves the problem that it creates.
I would like to address the whole welfare discussion a little bit later, but simply said, the ends don't justify the means. Just because the end result might be that they don't get abused at all, but they are instead dead, doesn't justify abortion in my mind. And there's also multitude of other issues. It kind of applies to well, no, I'm not going to mention that. Was I? Dang it! I keep on forgetting what all it is that you want to say. I'm not fine with 500,000, or excuse me, 5,000 illegal abortions or deaths from illegal abortions, more specifically happening in Argentina. And as for 500,000 illegal abortions being done annually, I do not know what the stats were for how many abortions were done before the criminalization of most to all abortions in that country. So, but although I do know United States of what the stats more specifically are, I mean, I can't remember what exactly. I almost want to say that it was like something around 500,000 for before Roe v. Wade was passed, and then it shot up to 1 million through over 1 million, in fact, throughout the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, I want to say. And in late 2000s through 2010s, it kind of got down to 800,000. I'm just honestly, statistically speaking anyways, I'm just honestly not seeing as to how that if we were to criminalize abortion here in this country specifically, how it would be an overall statistical negative, honestly, when how it would be a statistical negative that abortions would actually rise instead of decrease if abortion was to be made illegal. Because like I said, the whole illegal. Well, actually, Guttmacher, I wish that they provided an actual stat of how many illegal abortions were committed, like both before and during Roe v. Wade. But unfortunately, they haven't. That would like give us a whole lot of help. But looking at specifically the deaths from self-induced abortions, it makes me just skeptical, is all I'm saying in regards to that. And as far like brain development goes, okay. Actually, let me address the whole death penalty thing. We obviously agree that no innocent person should get the death penalty, right? Should not be executed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you would also agree that executing a late-term fetus would not be as justified as killing a born homicidal maniac.
If the brain is developed, then you've missed your chance. I'm fine with a time limit on abortions.
All right.
And my cutoff is the brain.
All right. And I guess that's the big issue is as to why that, like in the video, you kept on insisting that it is more or less, well, not exactly equivalent, but is it kind of befuddling to you as to why that one would be fine with executing a criminal, a violent criminal, but wouldn't be fine with executing a fetus that they themselves view to be a person, but you might not view to be a person. I mean, yeah, you might not view a 7 to 24 week conceived fetus as an actual person, and we'll talk about that. But for anybody to want to like make the equivalence between abortion and the death penalty, at least acknowledge that in our logic. I mean, the core of the issue, honestly, is whether or not they're people, they're persons to begin with. That should be the core of the issue, not, oh, you're inconsistent because this fetus, despite you believing them to be an actual innocent person, you don't want them to be executed, but you're okay with executing the non-innocent violent person with a death penalty or so forth. And I would solidly call them to be a person, 7 to 24 week conceived fetuses, even though that you would disagree with that. And by the way, like this is more open discussion, so I would kind of think that interjections would be a little bit more flexible, but was there something that you had to say in response?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up this part. Well, first thing that you said is, how do you plan to enforce this and to stop back alley or doctors giving abortions under the table in their clinics, unless you plan to have somebody watching them to make sure that they don't? Also, you made this argument earlier about you have no right to harm another body, but you're already harming. What right do you have to tell a woman that she must carry a fetus? Considering even if the pregnancy goes perfectly, her body goes through a shit ton of changes. Where do you get the right to tell her that she must do this?
I would
Also the welfare system will dramatically rise because it costs a shit ton to raise a kid. There are a ton of low-income parents that rely on schools to feed their kids breakfast and lunch.
Could I make a quick statement?
Sure.
Most of those consequences that come from pregnancy, when it comes to like a fully healthy pregnancy, not worse than death. I mean, you mentioned the idea of like somebody who's like 14 years old or
so
even
basically you're fine forcing a woman to carry a baby she does not want.
Compared to aborting the fetus.
You're fine telling a woman that she doesn't have any bodily autonomy. She has no rights. You're pregnant.
No. That's not right. I'm not saying that a woman has absolutely no bodily autonomy because they got pregnant. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but they can still like get a tattoo or something, for example, if they're pregnant. I mean, they have their right to bodily autonomy in that area.
You're fine telling a woman that if she's pregnant, she's a broodmare. She cannot have any say over whether or not she carries the baby, even if she is dead set against it.
What I'm saying is that
let him finish.
What I'm saying is that her bodily autonomy does not outright overrule the fetus's right to life. Like I said at the opening, I said at the beginning, my rights end where your rights begin, and the woman's right to bodily autonomy ends where the fetus's right to life, or even for that matter, their bodily autonomy begins. And if you have the case of something that is going to outright kill them, if you want to do something, that would cause. If you want to do something that would cause that, anyways, excuse me. Well, then no, you can't do that because that violates their rights.
Okay, so you're fine telling a woman that she has to be pregnant, she has to carry the child to term, and then she has to take care of it. This is what I'm talking about when I say you're going to see a spike in child abuse. And quite frankly, that woman who doesn't want to be pregnant, she is going to try to self-abort. She's either going to drink it away or she's going to go with the coat hanger option. You cannot force women who do not want to be moms or be pregnant to be pregnant. You have your right. Your rights end where hers begins. And you have no right to tell her that she has to carry the baby to term.
She has no right to terminate them either.
Yes, she does. It's her body keeping them alive.
No, I mean, it's not their fault that they ended up in that circumstance. They did not do anything immoral to end up in there. If anything, it would be more the dad's fault in the case of rape. But even in the case of consensual sex, she's still even if they use birth control, she's still consenting to that possibility that it might go wrong and she might still get pregnant. It's absolutely not the fetus's fault that they ended up in that circumstance. And so I see no reason as to why to terminate them. We don't terminate people before they have done anything wrong. We terminate them or deal with their circumstance in general after they've done something wrong.
You have no right to tell another person that they must carry a baby that they do not want to term. They are not a person yet. They do not have a brain.
Well, for one thing,
they don't have a brain. They're not a person. And quite frankly,
between 7 and 24 weeks, they do. They still do.
Quite frankly, you're going to cause. And I haven't even brought up the fact that you're going to see a spike in babies in dumpsters, because that was a common thing before Roe v. Wade. You're going to cause. This would cause massive amounts of problems. The welfare system would have to be dramatically increased, which means taxes are going up. But again, at the end of the day, you have no right to tell a woman she must carry a baby that she does not want to term. That is ridiculous. Your rights end where she begins. And because her body is the only thing keeping that thing alive, then TS.
Her,
Tough
her,
shit for the fetus.
her rights end where the fetus's rights begin. Like, I mean, even if we were
So
to
you're
like
saying
not
the fetus
get,
rights supersede hers?
this one area, sort, yeah. I mean, you don't have a
That's
right to.
ridiculous, but
Let them finish.
If a person, yes, I'm gender neutral, S-man.
Oh, for
But
God's
no.
sake.
But anyways, I mean, say if a person was just allowed, even like consensually, into someone's house, you don't have a right to do whatever the fuck that you want. That well, you don't have a right to terminate that person if they are like on your property. I mean, if we were to say that the woman's own body is her own property, I'm making a little bit of an equivalence, and there's not going to be any exact equivalence with it throughout this entire debate, honestly. But you don't have a right to just outright terminate somebody who did nothing wrong just because they are like inside your property.
if somebody gets in there once again with okay, if they're in there uninvited, but again, this is just aggravating. You can't tell a woman she has to keep a baby she doesn't want, and then so you want to tell women they have to. You want to tell women they have to carry a baby to term. You then don't want to give them any help on welfare. Or free lunches or free school breakfasts. Do you want to
you've already said that before.
System, to deal with it? No, I'm just trying to get your reaction of. And again, you're seemingly fine with 5,000. How about we have 0 deaths because we have abortion legal versus 5,000? And in this country, I guarantee you it would be 10 times that because Argentina has just a fraction of our population.
I'm not seeing the statistical projections for how that would happen because, again, it's like almost statistically not existent before and during Roe v. Wade. And also, even if we were to like not get law involved, yes, I do still have a right to tell or at least recommend what the mother should or should not do. Even if I was not for making it illegal, I'm still going to protest at abortion clinic or even incentivize a woman to not get an abortion nonetheless. And secondly, there is the adoption option, which we'll discuss more, I guess. Sorry.
Okay. And now we are moving on from the, as we've gone through the open discussion, now we'll spend 15 minutes addressing the chat, so I'm going to pull up the comments and we can go over this for about 15 minutes answering the questions of the live chat, and we will begin right now. I will go to the first actual question, trying to find it. So Milnerman asks, DarkCon, how do you enforce this rule, which I'm not certain what he's referring to, but I'm certain, I guess, how would you enforce, legally speaking, what you're proposing over the subject of abortion? How would you enforce it? And I guess he's more referring to. He asks, so if Roe versus Wade is overturned, how are you going to enforce people not having back alley abortions or fleeing internationally to have one performed without trampling the born citizens' Fourth Amendment rights?
Okay, if they were to like go overseas to another country, well then I honestly. I ultimately do not know how that would be resolved. I mean, unless we were to like make ourselves into a one world nation, which I am absolutely not for that. And what was the other part of Mjolnir's question?
Let me go back. And he asks,
how would you enforce it?
Yeah, how would you enforce it? I'll just pull back up. So without trampling the born citizens' Fourth Amendment rights.
Fourth Amendment rights as far as privacy goes. Well, if there was like probable cause, if there was like any evidence found that a crime was committed, even if it was outside of abortion, we would still have, the government would still have jurisdiction to put forth an investigation as to whether or not there was a crime committed. And if a crime was found to be committed, well then, punish the perpetrator of that. And in the case of abortion, if a surgeon is found to be putting forth abortions, to be doing abortions, well then, punish them in the same way that we punish people who are found to do homicide in a Love triangle is what I meant to say.
Okay.
For example.
Oh, all right.
That's just one example of why somebody would commit homicide. Just an arbitrary example.
Alrighty then. And this question goes. What's up?
Can I just say one thing? The Fourth Amendment rights do not apply to a fetus because they're not a citizen. Just so you know. So that
they're not.
Generally, investigations are started on with a credible accusation, not just the cops getting a funny feeling. I was kind of lost with your.
What if the accusation? Well, what if, for one thing, what if the accusation came from not from any cops? What if it just came from another fellow citizen? Oh, there's abortions found to be committed at this location right here. And secondly, yes, I fully realize that the fetus is not technically a citizen, but then again, neither is an illegal immigrant, and yet we don't have outright the right to full on execute them.
No, but we have the right to kick them out of the country.
Yeah. I mean, if there is a way for us to
let them finish,
they do not get access to any of our social programs that we all pay for. Well,
fair enough.
California, I'll leave that off.
Oh, but as far as them being kicked out, if there was a way for us to, like, I don't know, in some sci-fi future, teleport the babies outside of the mother's womb and into some kind of sustainment chamber, well then. Fair enough as far as kicking them out, but in most cases, as far as abortion goes, it ends up in a fetus's death when they committed nothing.
And this question goes for War Corpse from Mjolnirman. What is your criteria for abortions? Is there a cutoff point? Where when do you draw the line between abortion and murder? In quotes, because I'm not sure I like the usage of that word here.
I think that was answered like at the beginning of this stream.
Well,
I don't know if he caught it.
I'll clearly state it. Basically, you have right up until full brain development. After that, it would enter into the territory of murder. So the woman has about 5.5 months to make up her mind, and I think that's plenty of time. The 7 week, the 6-7 week thing is horseshit because half the time they don't even know they're pregnant until that time has expired.
And this next question is for War Corpse from Aircraft Sparky. For War Corpse, puberty causes a shitload of changing in a person's body. Did they ask that? Should they be killed because of puberty?
Well, there's nothing you can do to prevent puberty, but we have a procedure that can prevent an unwanted pregnancy. And again, puberty doesn't cause you to have to care for another human being that you don't want. So I don't quite, yes, it does cause changes in your body because you're reaching sexual maturity, but at the end of puberty, I don't have something I have to take care of.
Okay, and this next question is for War Corpse from Sparky. Does the father have any rights to make a say?
Over whether an abortion happens or whether or not he can stop it.
I go with either one.
Okay.
Go with either one.
Is much as I hate to use this feminist talking point, well, I think he should have the right to a financial abortion if he doesn't want it, but he has no right to force the woman to get the abortion. And as for stopping the abortion, well, unless he's got a surrogate mother lined up, then no, because men don't carry children.
Okay. And this, I guess, goes for both of you. This question is actually, no, wait, that was actually someone just adding on, so we'll go further down the line here. Let's see if there's anyone else having any questions. So far, it doesn't look like it.
You don't have any more questions?
No, how about your own live chat, DarkCon? Is there any questions from your live chat?
Let me see. Okay. In my own group, in my own live chat, man, it's very lively, honestly, if you want to go over and check out the browser for it. What do you mean, Dark Conservatarian, you're willing to throw out your principles of libertarianism? No, I'm trying to apply my principles of libertarianism within abortion. Because of one entity, I don't care if someone has an abortion, not my fucking choice. It's not a person's choice to murder either, Creed. The fact that you're going straight authoritarian and forcing people to do shit they don't want to do kind of makes you a hypocrite, my friend. The government taking in jurisdiction to prevent a murder or to even punish murder is not authoritarian. It's just plain, I mean, libertarianism or classical liberalism, if you want. So, no, I disagree, Creed. The mother invited that's Darkhan, don't try to ask a new teen. Don't try to what? I don't get this. Don't try to ask new teen. Dark, don't try to ask new teen. Don't try to act smug, my friend. You're starting to lose me as a subscriber. You're acting very snooty. Morescape is asking good questions. To my own credit, War Corpse is acting borderline irritable. So if you want to criticize Decor, Creed, sorry, I'm trying to actually get to questions.
Well, let's just move on. I have a question from Metal Minister, and even though he says don't bother asking it, I do kind of want to see what War Corpse has to say. This is from Metal Minister. He asks, okay, so at War Corpse, if brain function is your standard, does that mean that someone in a coma or with minimal brain function no longer has rights? No longer have rights?
If they're in a coma, but their brain is still viable, then yeah, they're fine. But if their brain function is so minimal that without machines, they're essentially, if they're brain dead, they're dead. I don't know what else to tell you. It's the same thing as that. I'm blanking on her name. Anyway, it was a famous case where a little girl went swimming. She ended up drowning, but they essentially saved her heart rate, but her brain was mush. It was dead. And her mom kept insisting that she's alive, just because of random muscle twitches that she's interpreting as responses, but her brain activity is zippo.
Okay. Well, then, fair enough. I don't think that's applicable really to Metal Minister's argument then. I mean, if there was absolutely no brain activity or brain function happening, then it's not really
minimal brain activity. Minimal brain activity could be just enough to just have random movements. Minimal brain activity. I mean, there was a child born without a brain that had minimal brain activity, but all they did was lie on a couch and just stare at the ceiling.
I think what you're talking about there, the boy's name is Noah Wall, I think it is. And that's not quite exactly true, because there have been updates on this story. Apparently, when they were born, they had less than 10% of an average baby's brain when they get born. But over the years, now he's 6. His brain has grown by 8 times or something like that.
This child had nothing. The only thing keeping him alive was where basically your brain is connected to your spinal cord. That was the only thing that was keeping them alive.
Are you talking about Noah Wall? Do you remember the name
of
the...
No, this was a girl.
Okay, let's...
Anyway.
There's another question. This is from Aircraft Sparky to War Corpse. So your premise is because people shouldn't have any responsibility for their actions. That he's referring to when you mentioned that you can't force a woman to give birth, and you mentioned if it's a child they don't want from an unplanned or
okay. This is something that aggravates me with Ben Shapiro. People have sex for fun or because they're bored. Does not mean that they want to take care of a child. And no moral grandstanding is going to change that. And quite frankly, again, it would lead to a massive expansion in the welfare state. What I've already said, but yeah, can a man sue for wrongful death in the case of abortion? No, it's not a person.
Alrighty, and after that question, I'm going further down.
I would say, well, I don't know if sue, but I do believe that a man should have some say to it. You would at least agree that the man shouldn't be mandated to pay for the abortion or anything like that if he doesn't want the abortion to happen, right, Corpse?
No, he shouldn't. Like I said, he should have the right to a financial abortion. And no, if he doesn't want it, he shouldn't have to pay for it unless, of course, they're married, which at that point it don't matter. Your bank accounts are linked anyway.
All right. And
I have a quick question if there's nothing more from the chat for War Corpse.
I do have one last question from Sparky, and then we have a little less than 3 minutes left, but I'll let you know when your time's up. So here's the question from Sparky. War Corpse, what do you consider brain viability? Is simple organ function good enough? or should there be cognitive functions? Should Biden be aborted?
Well, actually, yeah. So Bernie Sanders can get the nomination. He get curb stomped by Trump. Because I really wanted. Okay, I gotta keep on topic.
But in all literalness.
Yeah, he would. It'd be like 500 to 37. Anyway, is organ function good enough or cognitive functions? It's cognitive functions. Again, I can dig up a corpse and get their heart beating again with machines. Same thing as the Terry Schiavo thing. Her mom was insisting that she was still there. Brain scans had her brain as Swiss cheese and jelly. So
okay.
No, we're our cognitive brains, and without them, we're just basically a organic machine.
So Terry Schiavo is the one case that you were trying to you were trying to bring up as far as baby without brain.
No. Terry Schiavo was the woman. She had a stroke, I believe it was, and it essentially left her brain dead. And she had told her husband that if this ever happens to me, pull me off the machines and just let me die in peace. Her parents said, no, she's alive. Basically, brain scan after it ended in a huge court case that had 2 camps. But at the end of the day, I just went with the science, and the science said her brain is Swiss cheese. It literally was, her brain was actually jellifying. It was decaying. And people still were saying that she was alive because, oh, look at this blip. Oh, she held her mom's hand or gripped her mom's hand, despite the fact that could be any number of random electrical impulses.
This question is from Sparky. People shoot guns for fun, but if a stray bullet kills someone, they're at least guilty of manslaughter. Should the shooter be found innocent because of intent?
If they can prove that it was a complete accident, I don't believe they're charged with manslaughter.
Could I ask my quick question to War Corpse? I won't get into arguing this, but do you actually believe in fully funding Planned Parenthood? Just to clarify.
With government dollars?
Yeah, because that was my very first response video, actually, was your whole hashtag defund Planned Parenthood video way back on your original channel. And I got the implication that you want to keep on funding Planned Parenthood, but I just want to clarify that because you're not really a big fan of welfare. And in fact, I'm almost getting the implication that maybe you want it ideally completely defunded. But what about Planned Parenthood? Are you for defunding that as well?
Generally, I think that a service like Planned Parenthood should be paid for through private insurance, like all medical.
So no.
Systems are. Do I want to see some assistance for poor people just because I don't want more people on welfare?
So
I maybe could live with that.
Is that a yes or no on the idea of funding Planned Parenthood then?
Yes, but with restrictions.
Okay. So, and this is the last question, everyone. This is from Metal Doomer. He asks, what happens when the kid has severe Down syndrome? Can I still get the abortion? If I can't, I'm taking them in the... Jesus Christ. Never mind.
Yeah, I mean, the last half of that live chat seemed to have been edgy sarcasm, but to seriously address the first half of that, no. I mean, whether it be Down syndrome or mid or even low functioning autism, or even if the child is inbred, I don't see why to terminate them. I mean, whatever rules that we have applied for when they're born, I want those same rules applied for when they're unborn. Well, roughly, anyways.
All right, and this question is for War Corpse, because I think this one's a much better one. Wait, I have a question you got to ask him, S-Man. War Corpse, as the only woman here, is my opinion valid on this matter automatically more valid than y'all? And she's
No,
a southerner.
everybody's opinion is the same.
Okay. Mind if I ask some to you, War Corpse? What exactly was it that you were saying about me not being a woman in that response stream to my video to you? About not being a woman?
Basically because you're taking it a step further. You're telling a woman she has to carry the baby to term. I'm saying the woman, if she doesn't want to carry the kid, does not have to carry the kid.
But I thought you just told Amanda that no, a woman's opinion does not severely outweigh a man.
No. I am talking about you limiting a choice. She's asking me if I think her opinion is more valid than mine. There's a difference. You're talking about limiting choice, basically forcing them basically against their will almost to become a mom, and then not really providing a whole lot of solutions of how we make that easier for them.
Well,
and what if they really don't want to have the kid? They're going to self-abort. This is just going to happen.
Well, the whole solution after it gets banned. I mean, I'm willing to have that discussion, but I want to address the whole morality side of it first of all.
Well, everybody's morality is different. There is no societal morality.
Okay, well then let me ask, do you believe that humans have the right to life?
Yeah,
innocent people more specifically.
When they get their brain. Before that, they're not people.
All right, we have to move on. I let us go over the time to answer the question. So this is the rebuttal perspective. So this would be War Corpse going first because of in fact Darkon got to start. So you can give a rebuttal perspective, War Corpse, and then Darkon, you go next. This is up to 8 minutes. You again don't have to use all the time. Just let me know when you yield. So you ready?
Yeah. Go for it. Basically, my rebuttal has basically been what I've argued. We're not a person until we get a fully functional brain. When that shuts off, when that dies, we die. We are not a heartbeat. We are not finger development. We're not fingerprints. We're not stomachs. We're not DNA. We are our brain. That is what makes us human. And when it dies, we die. Quite frankly, I don't think that I think that if you get rid of abortion, you're going to have a massive spike in food stamps, welfare, free school lunches, free school breakfasts. I think you're going to see a spike in back alley abortions. I think you're going to see a spike in child abuse cases. I think you're going to see a spike in child neglect cases, especially. I think there's not enough charities to even make a dent in the problem. The adoption option is complete garbage. It doesn't work. We would have an overflowing orphanage system that would drain resources further. And as for the morality argument, well, unfortunately, everyone's morality is different. All three of us in this chat room have no problem eating a steak, yet there's a large swath of people known as vegans that have a huge problem, or Hindus. Everyone's morality is different. What I find moral, you two may not, and I'm just using us three as an example, and what one of you may find moral, I may find immoral. Everybody's morality is different. And the idea that we can force our personal morality on another human being is quite frankly ludicrous. And again, as dark conservatives, our dark conservatarian has said before, your rights and my rights and where yours begin. Well, unfortunately, you have no right to tell a woman that she must carry a child to term just because you think the idea of her aborting her fetus before it gets a brain is morally objectionable to you. Because then where does it end? If we're going to pass laws based on personal morality, where does it end? There's a large swath of people in my state that think we shouldn't drink alcohol on Sunday. And I didn't write anything down for it, so I think I'm just going to yield whatever time I have left.
Okay. 5.5 minutes.
So I got. Can I have a little small rebuttal after Kim? If
yeah,
you know
sure.
what? Oh, okay.
Yeah, this ain't closing statements. I'm going to make my 8-minute, then we're both going to have our 5-minute closing statements.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're ready.
Okay. As far as like morality goes, there's a whole lot said about that. I mean, we can agree that there's a whole lot of morals that are like subjective, like whether or not somebody should commit should commit homosexuality, or even should be allowed to commit homosexuality. I would agree that it's immoral and above all unethical to ban homosexuality and that stuff as a pro-life libertarian. But there is still some core morals that, as a generality, people believe in. Right to life being the biggest one among them. I mean, do not steal. I mean, a lot of people say that taxes does not necessarily fall under theft. I don't know exactly your belief on that, Corpse, but that's aside the point. There's still some core beliefs that people overall have. We all believe in the right to life. I'm just trying to like bring the right to life to its logical conclusion. And if we are to say that all human persons have an inherent natural right to life, and how we determine person is brain activity or an existence of a live brain, well, then I just want to extend that all the way down to not just late-term pregnancies, late-term fetuses, excuse me, but also to mid-term and even some early-term pregnancy. If they can find out that they're pregnant before 7 weeks, I cannot make the legal argument against them because there is no existence of a brain. I mean, honestly, I think that what would serve better for, in your case, War Corpse, is if you were to say, like, underdeveloped brain instead of a brain not being existent. Like, when it comes to in between the time of 7 to 20 weeks. And as far as brain development itself goes, I find that to be almost arbitrary, to be quite honest. I wish we could have got more onto that, but I guess I'll say it right now. Really, in all reality, brain development does not stop until you hit the age of 25, as I've generally heard that scientific fact. So if we are going to determine because of lack of brain development that people can can execute a person, well, I find that to be a bad precedent. I'm not saying that you're for that, Lord of Patriarchy, War Corpse, but it just opens up for the precedent for, it might possibly be okay to execute a just born fetus. I mean, for example, there are those people who believe in postnatal abortions, which, again, we all disagree with completely, all of us on this stream. But, yeah, again, brain development almost seems kind of arbitrary to me. And as soon as the brain is found, that being 7 weeks, well, 6.5 weeks more specifically, but I find 7 weeks to be like a good buffer time for when it be capped. And if she does not find out that she is pregnant, well, then it's really not the fetus's fault as to how whether or not that she found out that she's pregnant. If there is an existence of a brain right then and there, not their fault that they ended up in that circumstance, that they all ended up in that circumstance. And I want to iterate, I don't know if I fully iterated earlier, but a life of mother circumstance. If teenage years or earlier, and they are in high risk of dying or even being permanently damaged in their pelvic region or whatever the fuck have you, well, then that would roughly fall under life of mother circumstance, and I would say allow that. And as far as adoption goes, most children, you said it in your response stream to me, War Corpse, that you would have rather died than ended up in adoption. Well, that's your prerogative. That's you determining for yourself how you're to carry out your own right to life. But I see no right as to, I see no jurisdiction as to how that we should just let second party outright stomp the right to life for another party, that being the fetus in this case. And I've like seen anecdotes. I do not know of if there's a statistic of how many foster children would have rather died or get aborted than end up with life at all. But I have like talked to some people who have ended up in the foster care system, and they would they are glad that they did not die, that they did not get aborted or anything else like that. As far as welfare goes, I'm going to at least assume, anyways, that War Corps like me believes that nobody has an inherent right to somebody else's goods or services, and that's basically what welfare is that you're saying that people have the positive right to somebody else's services, that being welfare. As much as it would be shitty that there's like a possibility that they end up dying or their life circumstances just utterly degenerated because of lack of welfare, I agree they don't have a right to welfare, to someone else's goods or services or whatever, but they do have a right to life. So lack of welfare, and even then I'm willing to compromise at least on the welfare portion, and I think that there are some repeals that we can do to our abortion system before we have to like massively increase spending on welfare. Put back in the work mandate. Let's defund NSA, as I mentioned in my response stream. I mean, some people want to even defund ICE and let Department of Homeland Security or whatever else handle border security, or I don't know, or at least that's where I heard that idea anyways. Defunding ICE, defunding NSA, even CIA. I don't necessarily see the necessity for that either. There's some waste in military spending. I will agree. That money could go towards the foster care system, or even for welfare for specifically mothers, particularly single mothers with children. And I don't know. I guess that's all I have for right now. I yield.
All right, and you have about a minute and 25 to go before you clock out. So, War Corps, you can use the rest of your 5 minutes and 21 seconds to rebut what you want to on what he just said.
You know, they keep bringing up I was kind of zoned out during that whole thing, but you know, I'm sorry, but you're going to see a societal breakdown. This is going to massively expand the welfare system in this country. Again, do I like abortion? Not really, but it also solves more problems than it creates. Some people are not capable of taking care of children for a variety of reasons. Also, there is something we've been kind of dancing around about. What happens if the woman gets pregnant? You know, we didn't really bring up what happens if the woman gets raped, so she didn't really consent to it. What do we do in that instance? But what if the woman is mentally incapable of taking care of the child? What do we do then? Do we take it away from them? Or do we just abort it before it becomes a person? And yes, the welfare system will have to be massively increased because we try to be a compassionate society. And welfare is not the right to someone else's food, let's say. It's the government giving you money to buy food. The farmer still gets paid, or Crystal Farms still gets paid, or Kraft still gets paid. It's just the government pays for it. That's just to think that that's not going to massively increase. And also, if we get rid of abortion, what happens if a mom has a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a newborn? She can't go to work. So the work, and I agree. If you want welfare, you should be working, especially if you're childless or a childless couple or single and on it. You should really be working. But there are instances where some moms can't work. And if you're going to eliminate abortions, you're going to see a lot of rapid bursts, like one after the other, where the mom at that point can't work because she's got 3 kids that are all under the age of 3. The whole linchpin of this argument I've noticed is you're trying to tell people basically how much sex they can have. Like you're kind of saying that sex is only for procreation. This is the argument I almost get from like Ben Shapiro. Well, that's not how hardly anyone lives their lives. And again, it solves more problems than it creates. You're going to see a massive amount in new school spending, new welfare spending, and again, I firmly believe that if you do not have at least a fully formed, and I'm talking the physical brain, okay? Unless that's fully formed, TS. I think 5.5 months is reasonable. I think I'm going to yield back. I'm kind of going over the same point.
All right, and at that point, that's 6 minutes that you've used. All right,
Okay.
so at that point, we go into 5-minute closing perspectives. This will be.
Wait, I thought his second statement right there was the 5-minute closing perspective.
And he also has a couple of minutes if he wants to rebut me left on his time.
Oh no! What we were doing
I thought that
rebuttal perspective. If you want to rebut or if you want to move to closing statements, we can.
Well, I thought okay. He gave out his first response statement, which was about 3.5 minutes long, or 2.5 minutes. Yeah, because you said that he still had 5.5 minutes. I thought that was his first response statement, and I thought this last statement was his second.
This is the close. This is the closing of the rebuttal perspective. This is your time. Wait, you can go ahead with your with I think it's you'd be going for a rebuttal perspective.
Me?
Yeah, or if you want to move to closing statements, we can if you'd like.
I thought that's not what I read from the format. I don't know. Fuck it. But I guess there's nothing much more for me to respond to as far as welfare goes. I mean, solves more problems than it creates. And mentioning welfare and poverty and all that stuff. Simply said, the ends don't justify the means, and I know that I said that at the beginning, at my beginning statement, but to convince me that the means are okay for us to get the ends that we want, convince me that abortion is morally okay, and I don't see as to how killing an innocent person, and yes, I'm going to refer to them as a person because I'm not convinced as to how they are not. If you can convince me of that, well then fine. Those means abortion are okay with the ends, but no, I'm not so far convinced with that. I mean, in the case of poverty specifically, we do not go executing mass amounts of Africans, Indians, or South Americans or whatever because they end up in poverty. So I don't see how poverty should be like a metric that we use as to whether or not we kill people or allow people to be killed, that being the case of abortion. And no, I did not say, well, I know that a whole lot of other pro-lifers believe that sex is specifically for procreation. But even if they believe that, there's still a portion of them that don't want law necessarily to get involved with that. And they believe that abortion is not okay in spite of whether or not sex is for specifically just procreation or not. And I'll speak for myself specifically. I don't believe that it is specifically for procreation, but I mean, birth control is okay with me, but at the same time, if that birth control breaks, particularly if it's consensual sex, well, then she still consented to that risk. She knew that there was still going to risk, or at least should have known anyways, which that's another issue. I am fine with the sex education and not just abstinence only too, by the way. God, I cannot remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. As far as rape goes, as much as I can more empathize with a woman who was raped more than anything, I still don't see as to why we should just let the fetus to get punished who committed no wrongful act. And I guess that's my yield right there.
Alrighty. There we go. And I guess you were right about the it was actually supposed to be in closing statements, not the rebuttal perspective. You already used that time, so I guess I'll count towards a closing statement. And if you'd like to make a closing statement, War Corpse, let me know when you're ready.
I'll let him have the final closing statement, I guess.
Okay.
No, you can have the last word if you like. That was more a response to me. That wasn't a closing statement.
Technically, according to the format that he provided on Twitter, that was supposed to be my closing statement, but I guess we're extending this just a little bit more since we kind of goofed up.
Well, I had the last word in the opening. You should have the last word at the closing. Basically, this whole debate has been dancing around morality versus it's like a morality versus practicality argument. I'm arguing for the practicality of abortion. It solves more problems than it creates. And also I am for not telling a woman that she's forced to basically be a broodmare because she got pregnant. I am fine with limits on abortion. I don't think abortion 10 seconds before the baby's due is fine. The sad fact of the matter is, if abortion were to go away, you would see a massive rise in welfare. You would see a massive rise in back alley witch doctor abortions. You would see a massive spike in child abuse, child neglect. Again, I don't see how you can sit there with any sort of compassion and tell a woman who was just brutally raped, oh, by the way, you're pregnant and you have to carry the fetus to term. And yeah, that just, yeah. And, as for, the morality argument is the weak one to me because everybody's morals are different. Everyone's morality is different. I am just saying from a practical societal standpoint, abortion solves way more problems than it creates. And I just think, and it's not a great, it's not again, I've never said abortion's great, but at the same time, it solves more problems than it creates. I guess that's it for me.
Okay. And again, War Corpses have the habit of being good on time. That's good. And this is for you, Dark Khan. Your time begins when you're ready. Oh, he's muted. Okay.
Yeah, I was muting myself mostly so that I whatever sounds that I make doesn't interrupt War Corps, since we were like in the official response statements.
How considerate of you.
Yeah, kind of like how I did in my debate with Rational Outlaw against Esoteric, the Free, and Filthy Heretic.
The end.
I don't know if there's anything much more for me to say in response there. I've already gave my response to the solves more problems than it creates part. I guess the only thing I want to kind of reiterate or extend on more is the whole morality is subjective. Yes, morality is subjective. I mean, we all believe in the right to life. Some of us believe in the right to life for late-term fetuses, and nobody in this stream particularly does not believe in the right to life for late-term fetuses. But there still are those pro-choicers that do disagree with the idea of them having the right to life. But at the same time, even the more moderate pro-choicers would be saying, no, I'm not against bodily autonomy. I'm just for the right to life for this late term. And I mean, you're kind of in the same circumstance with those more radical pro-choicers than that I am in with the more moderate pro-choicers. That being, I believe in bodily autonomy ultimately, but I don't believe that stomps the right to life for earlier term fetuses. And if you believe that they don't have the right to life, if you believe that they are not persons, well, then fine. We'll talk about that, I guess. But we did not extend so much as to when, what determines sufficient enough brain activity to determine personhood. We did not. I don't think we fully fleshed out on that. But at the same time, because of that, albeit scant brain activity, I still say that they are persons. And because of them being persons, I believe in the right to life. I at least hope that more moderate pro-choicers would acknowledge that part of it anyways. And in final statement to my chat, I mean, even biologically speaking, according to Princeton University, they are humans from the moment of conception. It's just a question of whether or not they are persons or not. And persons and humans are not the exact same word. Human is a biological term. Person is a legal and sometimes philosophical term. What we determine to be a person and what we should be considering in law of whether somebody is a person or not. I guess that's it for me.
Okay, so you both have spoken for an hour and 11 minutes on the total debate out of all the time. So that would be the conclusion of the debate between Lord of Patriarchy and Dark Khan. I'd like to thank you both for coming on. It was
thanks
good
for
having
moderating.
this. Yeah, no
Thanks for
problem.
having me.
Yeah, so everyone, I hope you all have a great day. If you have any questions you want to ask these two later, just ask it in the comments and I'll find a way to get back to you on that. So that's where we're going to wrap up. Thank you to everyone who watched, and check out at Lord Patriarch on Twitter and at The Dark Con on Twitter. And you can always find me at S-Man Speaks on Twitter, and you can subscribe to the channels. I'll link it below. So thank you to everyone who watched. Have a great day.